Hi, everyone. This is Jack Allwild with another money episode. Today, I'm joined by Evan from My Money Marathon. He is at Money Marathoner on Twitter or X. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk and get into some things.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you too. So, on your Twitter or your X page, you show you've gone from a 20% savings rate to a 50% savings rate. And I want to talk about that and the steps that got you there. But first, we'd like to discuss your relationship with money growing up.
So growing up with my parents, they didn't really discuss money a ton. I know that we were never in a situation, thankfully, where we were too concerned about money. We never had to worry about how to get food on the table or how to afford mortgage or anything like that. So I'm very thankful and grateful for that. But because we had no issues, there was nothing really to talk about with me in general. So I never particularly knew where we stood financially, where I would stand financially in the future. The most that I got was my dad was serious about trying to educate me in one way or another about finance so that I would have a good future for myself. So he would focus a little bit on investments, and I just did not understand it in the slightest. He would talk about making sure to leave stuff in so it could compound over a long amount of time, and I'm just thinking, why can't I just take out those gains? Why am I letting it sit there for no reason? So it didn't really click for me, but he did his best to try and teach me some stuff. But outside of that, with budgeting and managing my finances, or how to balance income, or make sure you have a certain percentage set aside for saving and investing and 401k, all that sort of stuff, I didn't really get that sort of education. The one other thing I'll say is that thankfully they were able to help set aside some money for me, that, just a small amount over a long period of time from when I was born, so that by the time I graduated college, there was some money set aside to just help me get going, help me with like the upfront payment, first and last on an apartment, a little bit on a car, whatever it might be. So I'm very thankful for that. But I do wish that I can't really blame them. I'd blame myself for not internalizing some more of the lessons early on that he was trying to give me.
Mm-hmm. What was your dad's profession that he was involved in that type of thing?
He was a microbiologist,
Okay.
so nothing to do with money whatsoever. And my mom
Okay.
was a dietitian, so also nothing
Mm-hmm.
to do with money.
Okay. But he was definitely interested in it and kind of
Yeah,
so
he
how did you get interested in personal finance?
So I didn't start getting interested whatsoever until I graduated college, started my first job, and then probably about 6 months, maybe 8 months into it. It initially started when a few friends that I had at work, one person that had given me a recommendation to get in the job in the first place, so we kind of knew each other ahead of time. And he and a couple other coworkers were into investing. They were into trading. They were into, specifically at the time, trading AMC stock, which I think a
Okay.
lot of us know where that went from there. But that was my initial introduction, was through some trading and investing through them. They would also do long-term investing. AMC was kind of the fun thing to try and figure out and make some money through. So they introduced me to investing at that point, and I basically spent a few months, or actually several months, probably 6 to 7 months, doing more often trading, not necessarily day trading, but at least trading every 2, 3, 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
specifically AMC, and then also some other
Okay.
short end stocks at the time, like Nvidia. And it really didn't work out for me whatsoever, as I think it tends not to work out for a lot of people. And that led me to try and figure out, okay, what else is there out there to still try and tap into this? Because I could see the power of the market. I could see how much money could be made, how you could tap into building wealth through your savings instead of only having to put time into a day job to be able to earn income. And so that led me into finding long-term investing, value investing specifically, found the Investing for Beginners podcast, and that led me down the rabbit hole of value investing, index
Okay.
funds, dollar cost averaging, all that long-term stuff that I'm now 100% focused into.
Okay. What were you just getting in and out of AMC, or were you utilizing options, or what were you actually doing during
I
that
think I
period?
tried I think I tried option once,
Okay.
but I never got in depth to that whatsoever, because the idea of getting into margins scared me and having to tap into that. So because I never wanted to get in a situation where I was going to be in debt. I was fine with putting in some money and losing the money, but I never wanted to get in a situation where I over leveraged myself or something. So I was a little bit scared to tap into debt. But with AMC, it was mostly, yeah, it was buying in and out, trying to use stock analysis, some predictors, predicting data in the trends to try and figure out when it was going to drop and when it was going to rise. And of course, 99% of the time, that did not work out how I wanted it to.
Gotcha. So you mentioned one podcast, but were there any
Yeah.
other resources and like that you can really remember that really motivated you or helped you along?
So On the investing side, I would say not particularly. There were definitely a lot of YouTube videos, blogs, or YouTube channels and blogs that I would read just off and on when I was trying to look stuff up, but nobody else specifically influenced me on
Okay.
the investing side. However, I will say that a very influential book for me on the personal finance side, away from investing and just trying to build wealth in general, was The 4 Hour Workweek by
Oh,
Tim
okay.
Ferriss.
Yeah.
I'm
Great
sure,
book.
I think it's, yeah, a popular book. A lot of people have read it, but that seriously opened up my mind to possibilities with money that I never considered before. Because even while I was investing initially, my thought was still, okay, I work a day job and that makes me some money, and then I invest that money and I grow it over a long period of time. And that's where the story ended. And then there was the idea of the 4 Hour Work Week, where you could scale back your full-time day job and build up something on the side that can be much more passive, much more powerful, scalable up and down. And I got extremely excited about that, and I still get excited thinking about it, and that's still what I'm trying to build towards now. So that really has influenced the last 2.5 years of my life.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a big game changer for my life too, I'd say. So
Mm-hmm.
let's get into this tweet. You have, I say 50% of my income. You say that's about $2,600 per month after tax. You have a pretty good job, sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here are the 5 things that got you there. So why don't we go into that? So why don't you walk us through
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that have helped you save more of your take-home pay?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one here. I just have the tweet pulled up for reference. So the first one, saving 100% of my side income. For me, that was a no-brainer because, like you had mentioned, I have a good income. So I'm very thankful and grateful that I'm in a place where my side income isn't what's getting me by and allowing me to survive. The side income is just something that I'm bringing in on the side. It's just gravy. It's just extra. So having the mental fortitude up front to make a plan and say anything I earn on the side is just going to be going towards long-term savings. I can spend it eventually on a car or house if I want to, but in the short term, I'm not going to be putting it towards food or rent or miscellaneous purchases in between. That's just going to be for long-term savings. And that made a significant boost because anything I can make is just adding on 100% to my take-home savings and investing. So that's a real big way to supercharge it and up to by like 20% of the savings rate just from the side income boost.
Wow.
Second was increase with every raise bonus. Also for me, again, no brainer because I'm in a place where I have spare income. I can up it over time. So anytime I get a raise, at least about 50% of that raise is going to be going towards an increase in my savings investing rate. My 401k is also set up so that every single year, I believe it's on February 1st, it's going to go up by 1% as well, assuming that I'm getting a raise prior to that. And any bonus that I get, it usually comes out in like March or so. Any bonus, at least 30 to 50% of that is also going towards just straight up savings, so that I'm not tempted to splurge the whole bonus at once. At least a huge portion of it is going to be going towards supercharging my savings for a little bit, and the rest I can spend if I decide to.
I guess before we keep going, when you actually say savings, when you're saving, what is the money actually going into? What vehicles are you using?
That's a good question. I think I overuse the word saving sometimes because I want it to be a catch-all for anything that's not spending, but in reality, that's not particularly clear. So for me, savings is, like I said, anything I'm not spending. So the vehicles that it can go into are a retirement account, an HOISA, a high yield savings account, which I use for an emergency fund specifically, or some short-term savings as well, like towards a car down payment, and any other investing vehicle as well, like just an after-tax taxable account or an after-tax retirement account as well, like a Roth IRA.
Okay.
Any of those vehicles. Next one was keeping expenses low. So for me, now that I'm looking back at this, I kind of wish I'd reworded that to keeping recurring expenses constant, because my recurring expenses aren't as low as they could be. And I think I admit that in the tweet. That was not the right word. But like my recurring expenses are not as low as they could be. But for me, the important thing is that they're consistent. I see a lot of people out there that will be in a decent financial situation, and then every time they get a raise, they say, well, I could afford better rent. And then they get the next raise. Oh, I could afford a better car. Next raise, I could afford more subscription services, whatever it might be. And the recurring monthly expenses are just going up and up and up over time. Whereas my recurring expenses have stayed constant for the past few years with no changes and no massive change in sight either. So as I'm earning more money and I'm saving more of that money, that's all just going towards saving and investing, and none of it is going to just continue piling up lifestyle inflation, essentially.
Now, are you tracking? I mean, I'm guessing you're budgeting. Do you also track like your net worth periodically? to kind of keep that at the forefront of your mind, what are you actually tracking on the monthly or whatever period of time you're looking at?
Yeah, so I do actually track quite a lot of stuff. And in fact, I built automated Excel tools to do these things because I learned Excel through work and I really enjoyed it, which sounds incredibly nerdy, but I've really enjoyed doing Excel automation and coding behind it. So I built some tools and actually most of them are for free on my Gumroad site as well, linked through my Twitter. But I do use one Excel sheet is for budgeting. So it imports all of my expenses from my credit card statements and debit card statements, automatically categorizes everything and totals everything. And I do that usually halfway through a month for the last month's set of expenses. And that gives me a good idea of what's changing over time. Oh, we spent a lot on food that month. We need to focus a little bit more on that. I also use another one for a dividend tracker, which is sort of just for fun and motivation. So I can just easily enter in dividends over time, which again, I usually do about every month, but it's incredibly empowering to see this. What for me is essentially free money coming in just for letting my money sit in stocks. It's very motivating to see those increase from last year to this year. I think it was in March, I had an 800% increase in dividend returns. And that's just incredibly motivating to want to keep going to see that actually coming to fruition. Oh, the net worth tracker, you mentioned net worth. I'm also using it to track net worth periodically just to try and make tracking a little bit easier. And that just gives me a good idea of where I am towards long-term goals, specifically like buying a house, because I, of course, don't want to put my whole net worth into a home down payment. So that gives me a good idea of, reaching a certain threshold past it and also trying to work towards financial freedom. So I have kind of a ballpark number in mind. And so that gives me a ballpark percentage of how close I'm getting to that. Again, more motivation to just want to keep working more than anything, just motivation. And last one here. So here again, I mentioned avoiding lifestyle inflation. So limiting as much of those changes month to month as possible so that I'm not just wasting away my raises and bonuses by just spending more money each year. And then if I ever decide to quit my day job to a side income, now I have these huge recurring expenses that are holding me back and weighing me down, and God forbid putting me in something like debt because of that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned housing a little bit. I've seen some of your other tweets about how you're fine renting for now. You're going through the pros and cons. How do you view the future? Are you still interested in acquiring a house eventually, or how do you view that?
I'm sure that this is a very standard common point of view now, but houses are just insane right now. And even with my solid income working as an aerospace design engineer, even with my good income, getting a decent house just isn't financially feasible yet. I would have to save for at least probably 4 or 5 more years to be able to comfortably afford the kind of down payment I would need to put down on a decent house, at least in my area. I know that some areas could be different, but the area I'm in is not an extremely high cost of living place to begin with. So the idea of a house is sort of off the radar at the moment. I would love to get into one, but it's just not, for me, financially feasible right now, and it's not my main goal. My main goal is, as I've mentioned in the videos and tweets about why I do rent now, a big reason for that is trying to save time, because I'm trying to build a business, build a brand, build connections with other creators, and build businesses with other creators. And that's my main focus here, is essentially scaling my income at this point. Whereas spending the time that it would take to put into a house for researching, all the paperwork that goes along with it, the inspections, the maintenance along the way, things like just mowing the lawn and maintaining things, keeping up with things, take a ton of time. Whereas while I'm renting, I don't really have any of those issues. Any maintenance issues that come up, I take 2 minutes to submit a request to maintenance, and then they come in within the next few days and fix it. And I never have to worry about anything. I'm obviously not doing any lawn care, pest control myself. So it frees up a ton of time to put towards other things. And the idea of sinking all that time into a house right now for sort of a minor life upgrade, and I don't think a huge change to my wealth, even in the long term, it's just not worth it for me at this point.
And I forget, you're engaged, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because I was going to say house hacking might be maybe like a middle ground, but sometimes it's tough to get the girlfriends and wives on board. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, sometimes I definitely, I'm sure that there are more optimized decisions I could make out there, but I tend to get scared away when it's something I know I have to commit a ton of time to, or much time at all to, because again, my time priority right now is just trying to build my brand and business. And the idea of putting even a minor amount of time into something that's not related to that, it just kind of spooks me away and makes me think, okay, I'll put that off for now.
Gotcha.
But who knows what the right decision is, of course.
So it seems you're pretty well thought out in terms of automating the savings. When And you brought up some of the accounts it's going into. What types of, are they ETFs? What is the money actually going into? How are you currently allocated?
So essentially all of my money is going into VOO or in my
Okay.
401k. Yeah, or in my 401k, some similar overall market ETF that does its best to track the overall S&P 500. But everything outside of my 401k is going into VOO, just sticking with the Vanguard ETF to follow the S&P 500, just trying to track the overall market. It takes no mental effort for me. It takes no time for me to make those decisions. And I've seen so many statistics of, I've always seen between 80 and 90% of day traders or active investors at all, not just day traders, but active investors trying to make individual stock picks over the long term, 80 to 90% of them fail to even meet the overall market. So it just doesn't, I don't think that I'm going to be that exceptional. And if I to be that exceptional, I'm sure I would have to put in a ton of time. And for me, it's just not worth it to get another 0.5 or 1% in my returns to put in that much time. I'd rather put that time towards other things.
Mm-hmm. So, Evan, if someone's pretty new to the personal finance space, they're maybe having a little bit of issues managing their expenses and getting on track, what would be like some of the first steps that you would advise them to take?
So the excuse me. So the first step I would always say is to automate. For me, that's not only a huge time saver, but it instills, I don't even want to say a habit because you're not really taking any action over time, but it makes it part of you, part of your routine that you're not even actively doing, essentially. So every single month, for example, I automatically put money into my 401k and in my Roth IRA and in my emergency fund and in my taxable investments. No mental effort is going towards those. And I always do that every single month, even if I want to save a little bit more money or I want to spend a little bit more money, whatever it might be, that money is always going in there. And I don't have much of a choice about it unless I want to dig into the settings and cancel the recurring investments, which I'm not going to do unless it's a situation where I have to temporarily. But for beginners, one of the biggest issues is, oh, well, I'll save next month, I'll spend on this, and then next month I'll save, and then it's always next month, and next month never really comes. Or they're going to be inconsistent or erratic about it. And one month they'll say, I really want to build wealth, so I'm going to put in $1,000. And then next month they'll say, oh, I already put in 1,000, I don't really have to. And then you wait another 6 months to put any money in, and then it's another $200, whatever it might be. So to me, the best way to do is just to say, okay, in your budgeting, what can you ballpark afford? We can be careful in the beginning, and then the second step will kind of work itself out. But the first step would just be put in the amount you can afford, 100, $150, $50, $10, doesn't matter. Set up that automatic investment to go in there so that from then on, it's always going to be going in, whether you want it to or not, or whether you feel like it that month or not. And then the second step to this is for what I call saving until it hurts. So every single month, up that saving rate by 5%. So say you start at $100, up it by 5% more of your income, or even 1% more of your income if you want to be more conservative about it, and just go until you start to see, okay, at the end of each month or at the end of each pay period, I'm not having a ton left in my checking account, or I'm starting to see things decline a little bit at the end of the month instead of building up over time. Okay, then you can back it off. And now you know how much you can save until it hurts, or how much you can save until you can't safely save anymore. And then you've maxed out your savings rate. And the great thing is, once you've hit that max, as long as it's automated, you're going to continue doing that every month. This won't be a one-time thing to push yourself. That will happen indefinitely just because of automated systems doing it for you. And to me, that's hugely powerful for beginners.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind. It's the way to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay. So Evan, before we close out, I like to ask every guest, what is the best and worst personal finance advice you have either heard or received?
So the best for me is going to sound pretty obvious because I've been talking about it a ton, but it's just to automate 100%. There's no reason to put active energy into something like this that has so many automated systems out there that can take care of it for you. Just simple automated systems of automatically investing a certain amount each month. That is so much more powerful than people give it credit for. Essentially, people think that they need to be a good investor, a good saver, they need to take some sort of active action every single week to make it happen. And even though that's true, you should be actively thinking about it and trying to save and budget, not spend too much. On the side of investing and setting aside money, it just doesn't need to be in your hands. And so that's a huge shift to me. I don't remember where I heard it initially. I definitely didn't hear it early on because I was doing active day trading with AMC and everything. So I definitely was not automating anything at that point. But whenever I did hear that, that was a huge tip. And then I'd say the worst financial advice would probably be when I was trading AMC. and my friends, not blaming them in any way, nothing against them, but when they were trying to teach me how to do that, and it just was not, it's not a financially responsible decision to make, in my opinion, at least for me and my long-term goals. And it did not lead to anything positive, and I don't think it would have led to anything positive by now, considering AMC peaked at like $30, and then now I think it's below $1 or something, or at least around $1. So I'd say that was probably the worst that I've ever gotten and could have gotten.
Okay, avoid the meme stocks.
Yes,
Well,
avoid
Evan,
meme
it's been a joy talking to you. Sound like you have some good systems in place and can provide a lot of value to people. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can go learn more about you or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So on Twitter, as you mentioned before, I'm at Money Marathoner. I also have a website, mymoneymarathon.com. Also very active over on Instagram and TikTok, which are both, I believe, _ My Money Marathon. On any social media site, if you search My Money Marathon with spaces, you should be able to find it, because that'll be the name everywhere. Sometimes Evan in front of My Money Marathon. But I'm very active on all those social platforms. I also have a newsletter that goes out, the Money Marathoners newsletter, where I go into deep dives, very personal stories and situations of how I've learned what I've learned and what's influenced my current financial philosophies and decision making. And I also have some products out, like the Automation Playbook ebook, as well as how to manage your own wealth without a financial advisor, because I also tend to be somebody who leans a lot away from financial advisors. So I have an ebook out there to try and instruct people how you can manage your own finances without dealing with a financial advisor, and some other miscellaneous stuff coming along the way down the pipe.
Awesome. Well, a lot of good resources. We'll be sure to include links to all those. And Evan, until next time, it's been great.
You too. Good talking to you.